In this episode of the Digital Trailblazer podcast, we're going to talk about the number one problem in your business. And contrary to what you may think, it is not leads, it is not traffic, it is not sales. Judy Weber is with us today to reveal exactly what that is. So stay tuned.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now let's get to it with today's guest.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Getz, your host of the Digital Trailblazer podcast. And with me today is Judy Weber. Judy, welcome. Why don't you give our audience a quick introduction? Tell them who you are and what you do.
All right, Todd, thanks so much for allowing me to be here. I'm so excited to share because this is going to be a twist on what people think their problem is. So I have been empowering women all of my life. First as a trial lawyer, then as a C-suite executive. And for the past 8 years, I've helped Christian women make $1 million impact and income, scaling businesses that literally change the world. I'm the creator of the 4-Day Work Week. I help my clients scale to 75K months, working just 25 hours a week. Hustle and grind is not required. And our potential is truly limitless because it's our unwavering faith that makes every business strategy work.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love that. And when you told me this concept about what you're about to reveal, it clicked with me because it's absolutely true. One of the things we talk about all the time is all these courses and programs that people buy into to try to fix this problem and trying to grow their business and bring in income. And they're always typically focus on the wrong thing. So let's reveal this. What is the one big problem? Because a lot of people, they're getting into webinars, they're getting into funnels, they're getting into Facebook ads, they're getting on all these things and nothing seems to be working. So what is this thing that we need to focus on?
Yeah. Every one of your problems in your business can be solved with your words. It's your words. Because you can be the best at whatever it is that you do, but the best communicator always wins. And so communication is a lot of things. It's not just words, it's also your alignment. But let's just think about this for a second. For those of you out there think you have a leads problem, it's a words problem. Why do I say that? Because when you say the right words that will activate your best clients in your audience, they're going to raise their hand, they're going to reach out, they're going to say, give me some more, right? If you say, oh, I have my leads, but I need more sales, that's a words problem. Because again, getting them from the lead to the client, there's a communication gap there somewhere. And I will say, and this might really surprise the listeners, your team, any team problem. I work with clients who say, my team, they're bleeding me dry here. They're such a big expense. And, they were supposed to help me and I'm working too many hours. What's going on? I'm like, you know what? Your words will fix that. Because how are you managing them? How are you leading them? Have you created for them what success looks like?
I absolutely 100% agree. For example, ads. I know a lot of people who have spent a lot of money on expensive ad agencies. It's not just a couple $100. We're talking several $1,000s on top of the money they spend on the ads. And they get no leads, or they get leads, but everybody's a no-show. Or the people that do show up are unqualified. They always have an objection, money objection, or I need to think about it or something. And then they jump onto another strategy. Okay, so maybe Facebook ads didn't work. Oh, let's try a challenge. Let's try a webinar. Let's try this or that or the other thing. And they'll do a webinar and it fails and they blame the webinar. And then they say, okay, well, now let's do a challenge. And they do a challenge and no sales again. So that, challenges don't work. It's a scam or whatever. And the thing is, for every one of those strategies, there's someone out there who's doing the strategy and they're killing it. So what's the difference? If you did everything the same as the person who's killing it, it's not the strategy. What's the variable here? It's the messaging. It's like you said, it's the words.
Yeah, for sure. There's another element that I thought you were getting to. I'll come back to the words in a second. But you're exactly right. I see women out there. I work only with women. Sorry, guys. But so I see women out there that are chasing strategy after strategy. As you said, I tried this. First of all, we don't try in my world. We do. And then we evaluate and then we do again. But they're chasing strategies. Oh, Facebook ads don't work. That's junk. Let's go over here, like you said. So stop chasing the strategy. And what else I see them doing is they have this influencer. I want to be like her. So they copy and paste and try to be like her, the way she dresses. It doesn't work. Why? Because it's out of alignment. And so the bottom line here is, what do these people have that make these strategies work? It's an unwavering faith. So whether it's they believe in themselves so much, or for us Christians, we believe in Jesus Christ, that he called me to this. And so of course he's going to equip me and empower me. There's that alignment element. And you can feel it when you're in it and when you're out. That's huge.
So let's bring this all the way back to the beginning. Where do we need to start fixing these words in order to start getting some traction? Let's say that we're at the very beginning of the journey. We're not sure even where to start working on things. What's the first thing we need to work on?
Love this. The first thing anybody needs in any business is you need to know your best client. First of all, you need to identify who you work with, and it's not everybody. And then once you identify who that best client is, you have to know that person in and out. You have to be obsessed with the person in the most loving and serving way. Why? Because you have to understand, like, let's say I'm a business coach. So I need to be concerned not only what's going on in the daily life of my best client when it relates to them working in and on their business, but what else is happening in their life? How is what's happening in their business impacting the rest of their life? I need to bring to social and to my podcast and even to podcast guesting spots, wherever I show up, I need to talk about their daily experience so that they tap in and they say, oh, she gets me, and at a very deep level. So that's huge. We start with the best client. If you don't know who that is, or if you're too generic, nobody's listening. The internet and everywhere, it's just too crowded right now. You're going to disappear.
Do you have any tips for how to know how specific to get? Because I think some people struggle there sometimes. Maybe they niche down to, like, for example, is Christian women specific enough? Or is there a sub niche in there that you want to get down to? Or does it depend on the niche sometimes? Because maybe some niches are smaller than others. Is there a way to determine how specific to get?
Yeah, I would say you could never be too niche down. I mean, our inclination as humans is to say, oh my gosh, as I shrink the world and I go nichier and nichier, that I'm going to have less and less opportunity. There's that desperation. But what I have found is, for example, if I were to help lawyers transitioning to be business owners or to be coaches, consultants, or something like that, maybe that would be super duper awesome. Maybe I would blow up. So I personally don't believe that you should be concerned about niching down too much for the people that might be earlier stage. I think that who you're talking to right now, you may think that you have a niche, and you may, but you're not communicating that you know them. You're not even talking directly to them. In certain posts, I tell my clients, call out who it is. Like, I don't work with every Christian woman. I work with the highest, highly driven. My best clients, they are highly educated, right? They've gone to college. A lot of them have gone to master's and doctorate level. They are very accomplished. So right away, I went from Christian women to super smart, to super, ambitious, to those that have like lots of initials after their name. So don't be afraid to niche down.
One of the other things I think that people struggle with is knowing the top of mind issues that are going through the minds through their daily lives and being able to communicate that to them. Number one, well, why do we need to do that? And then number two, how do you figure that out? How do you know what it is that they're really concerned about and that they're thinking and all those things?
Yeah, think about it. I like to think of it this way. Here it is, Friday morning at 11:45 my time. What is my best client doing right now? So there is an element of you have to have had clients, best clients, right? So that you can have an understanding. But here's a little cheat code. Oftentimes we are our best client years ago. So we can tap into that. Ooh, when I was at this level, what was I thinking? What was I thinking about at 8 a.m., 8 p.m., and then when I woke up at 2 a.m., so there's that element of, more than you think you do. And for many of us, we can look inside and look at our past, look at our past.
That reminds me of when my wife and I were first getting started with trying to build a business, and our first venture into that was with network marketing. And I remember all the pains that we went through trying to build a network marketing business and the struggles that we went through. And then later on, when we created a course to help other network marketers to generate leads online, that experience really helped us with the copywriting to speak the language, to hit those pain points, to really show them that we understand the journey that they're on and what they need to do in order to solve that problem that they have of doing everything the upline told them to do, making the list of 100, talking to people that you haven't called up, or even spoken to or seen in 10 or 20 years from high school. And suddenly you're calling them out of the blue and they're wondering why. And now you feel like some spammy pitch man, right? All those things, getting flat out rejected by everybody, cussed out. And then at the end of it all, having nothing to show for it. And you go back to your upline, ask them, okay, well, I did what you told me to do. I have no sales. Now what? And they've got nothing. And we knew that frustration and we put that into our copy. And if we had not had that experience and been able to communicate that was our first 7-figure year selling that course. And it was because we knew those things.
Yeah. You just hit the nail on the head in that you were in their head. Our people that we're talking to, our best clients in the audience, especially on sales calls, they're telling us the answers. They're giving us the answer code. And so how many of us are recording our sales calls just for our own benefit and listening back? And I know for me in the early days of doing this, coaching and consulting, my first year in business, we were just shy of 200,000. But even at that point, I was like, oh, I missed so much money because I wasn't capturing exactly the experiences they were telling me and basically giving it back to them in the copy and the content. It's masterful. And it really is that simple if we just are listening.
That whole thing about recording sales calls, and my wife is the one that manages our sales team, and she's amazing at sales. I mean, it took her years to study, to learn, and get really good at that. This is just kind of an offbeat question, but have you been leveraging AI at all to try to help with that process? Because we've had some other guests on the show that have done that, and they seem to have good results. But have you looked into AI at all to help analyze those things?
Actually, my coach, because I will always have a coach, he just suggested that just 2 weeks ago. And so I think looking into that. But, I will tell you, I'll be very honest with you. AI, I was a naysayer from the beginning. I'm like, people are talking about they're concerned about AI overtaking them. I'm thinking, heck no, they can't get into this beautiful brain. I wish I could just give it to my children and help them know all that I know. And it's not because I think I'm great, but it's because I've had decades of experience. But on this question of AI, it can absolutely be a useful tool. But I believe that the most powerful sales tools that we have are our ears and our heart. To really care. And that AI can't touch.
Yeah. We had another guest on the podcast that said that, and I think he's absolutely right, is that AI is very good at doing B+ work. It gets you there, but in order to get to that A+ level, you need that human touch. You need the experience to know whether it's telling you the right things and giving you the right feedback.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like there's two things that AI can't touch, right? It's the emotions and the nuance. And they only know what's, like you said, the output's only as good as the input. So I think it's beautiful for, sometimes I put stuff into ChatGPT and they give me back something. Oh, that's genius. I didn't think of that. But still, the real genius is layering our human brain and those nuances to it.
I was listening to some video and they were talking about AI. And for example, someone may hear our discussion here and say, okay, well, if I need to figure out what my ideal client is thinking and what's in their head, I'll just input that into AI and it'll tell me. The reason I don't think that's going to work so well is because the way AI is programmed, unless you have the right inputs, like your sales call data. If you have a bunch of sales calls that you're taking the transcripts, you're feeding it into there, and then you're asking, you'll probably get a good answer. But if you don't have that and you just ask it point blank, my target audience is underwater basket weavers or whatever. What are their top concerns? What is it that's going, if you ask it whatever questions, it's pulling information from billions and billions of websites and pieces of information on the internet to try to come up with the most generic answer. It's not programmed to be able to selectively take the pieces of information that you need that are going to give you the best answer. It's too big, broad, and generic to give you the answer you need unless you filter down the information it's pulling from to give you the answer. Does that make sense? I'm butchering this, but
No, it's so good. And you know what's interesting on this idea of inputs and outputs? It reminds me of my client. She is a financial divorce consultant. She helps high net worth women who are going through divorce. And one of the first documents that have to be submitted is a numbers document. I forget exactly what the document's called, but she always says, sometimes clients come to me too late. They've already submitted this all important document because that forms the basis for the numbers and the settlement discussions and all the rest that flow from that. And so she always says the outcome's only going to be as good as the input. So that's why, so similarly, AI, I'm just not a fan, because I will say 9 out of 10 times when one of my clients, I audit their social and their other content, their emails and such, and I can always tell when they've relied too much on AI. I'm like, show me the heart in this content. Show me where this is going to trigger somebody. It's not. It sounds so vanilla. It's overstated. It sounds so much like what they just read 10 other experts like you said, right? So I'm not a fan.
So once you have that customer avatar figured out and you kind of know what direction you want to go as far as what's in their mind, they're sitting down at the keyboard, they're about to type something in, they're trying to solve a problem. What is it that they're typing in? That's typically what we tell our clients to think about is, what is it at that moment? They're searching Google, they're searching YouTube, they're typing something in there. What is it that they're going to type in there that is going to help them to find a solution to their problem? That's what we want to know. Once we have that, what's the next step? What's the next thing that we need to focus on in order to start building this business and getting the words right?
Yeah. So to your point, after the best client, you've got to be clear on the transformation, the ultimate transformation that your clients are going to experience from working with you. And so what I find is that if you don't really think of that with specificity, I'm a big one on specificity. Specificity matters at every level. So if you say, well, the transformation is you're going to feel better, what does that mean? Or you're going to be more confident. And so I always say, so that what? Like, what are they going to do with the confidence? Is that it could be a mom who wants to be a more confident mother. It could be more confidence to be able to show up at those power meetings at work so that you don't get overlooked again, right? So the transformation has to be so clear. And I think where people get confused is they say, well, wait a minute, you mean the ultimate transformation? But there's all these other little milestones. Okay, great. We'll get that clear in your mind. But ultimately, what do they want at the end of the day? For example, why would someone want to lose weight? Like, tap into that. You're going to lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks. So that what? And so that's where niche comes in. So that is going to be very different if you're working with midlife women who want to get rid of the belly punch and be able to get on the floor with their grandkids, right? As opposed to the new mom who wants to lose those pounds and get back to her pre-baby weight. Like that is just so different. So tapping into that is huge.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I feel like a lot of the clients that we bring in struggle with as well, is that speaking to that transformation, because so many of them come in thinking that I'm a ketogenic diet coach. I help people get clarity or the confidence, right? I help people get confidence. Well, number one, who are you helping get confidence? And like you said, what do they want that confidence for? Those are really important because you're going to speak and you're going to market to those two different people very differently. Like with the weight loss, if I'm doing a webinar about losing weight, if I'm speaking to someone who's like me, maybe it's for competitive athletes. Maybe it's for people who are doing wrestling or judo or something where they're competitive and they want to cut weight for a very different reason than someone who is a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids and wants to be able to fit into the wedding dress again. You're going to market to them in very different ways, and you can't speak to them the same way if you want to make that sale.
Yeah. And I just want to add this. I'm always about being disruptive, being real and raw. Because people crave realness. They crave authenticity. And so let's go to the weight loss thing. Maybe you really want to lose weight and you didn't ever tell anybody this, or you didn't want to say it out loud because you're a good little Christian girl, but you don't feel good to be naked in front of your husband. So you haven't had sex in a while. Sorry, I don't mean to blast this podcast and, for little ears, but the point here is if that is really a concern for your people, and you should know that. Like, why do they want to lose weight? Yes, they want to get down on the floor and play with their grandkids, but maybe they want to rekindle this marriage because now the kids are all out of the house, So when you say that, and again, even if they never uttered it and they see that copy come through in the email and they're like, nobody ever said that. This girl gets me. Wait, who is she? Let me look her up, right? It's huge. We have to be real and raw. That's disruptive. We're saying the thing that everybody else is afraid to say, or our clients won't say, but we say it. And so we stand out.
And you think about marketing for something like that. If you look in your timeline on social media and you come across an ad that says lose 20 pounds in 30 days or whatever, I mean, how many of those do you see? You're scrolling right past it every single time. And the thing is, it hits the emotions. When you talk about how long has it been since you felt comfortable being naked in front of your spouse, man, you see a post like that, you're stopping and you're clicking read more. You're interested now. I mean, that's a message that's going to get way more clicks. It's going to be way lower cost per lead. It's going to get your ideal client in there. It is so much more effective than lose 20 pounds in 30 days or whatever,
Yeah. And you know what? It does take guts, I suppose. I've always been a gutsy kind of girl, but isn't that the point? See, I feel like, especially for Christian women, there's like, I want to be kind. I don't want to offend. Well, Jesus Christ didn't water down what he had to say, his message, in order to do the work that he was called to do. So we really have to look at him as a model for those of us that claim him as savior. What did he do? He did not shy away. He did not dilute, like I said, and water down his message. And we can't either. We just can't.
Well, it also helps you to stand out. It helps you to be unique in the marketplace, which is really important. So this messaging, the speaking to the transformation, super important. What's after that? What is the next piece that we need to look at?
There's 4 P's that you need in your copy, and you will always nail it if you have these 4 P's. I'll go through them real quick. First, every word you say, your headlines, your content has to be first P, provocative. Just what we're talking about, attention grabbing. I like to say like a loving slap in the face to make her think, wait, what did she just say? Right? Stop the scroll, provocative. The second P is potent. We are experts. We have lots of words of wisdom. Let's say it and pack a punch, right? It has to be potent. It has to be powerful and show your authority and your influence. Third, it's got to be precise, got to be specific. We talked about that. And then fourth, it needs to be punchy. What I find is that people go into word vomit and they just keep going. What's the transformation? They're either really short and generic or they're long and long and long. And I'm like, wait, you just put somebody to sleep. So you need to be short, sweet, concise. Use no more words than you need to make your point.
Yeah, again, really important points. The one thing that we always say is that people are looking for a specific solution to a specific problem. They are not looking for a generic solution to a specific problem. And so just like I said, you need to be precise. And the last one about being punchy. And I think everybody realizes this. People's attention span is not what it used to be. So you got to get to the point. You got to make the point. I forget who originally said this, but I think there's a few people attributed to this quote that any idiot can make something complicated, but it takes a genius to make something sound simple. And simplicity is part of making it concise. What are we saying? Why are you saying it? It needs to have a purpose. Like you said, can't have a word vomit. People will lose interest. They'll click off. They'll never make it to the end of the webinar. They'll never read the full ad. So is there anything else that we need to look at as far as words? Because we've talked about the customer avatar. We've talked about, speaking to the transformation, and all that goes into our marketing. There's other places where this is important too, isn't it?
I mean, to me, it's everywhere. I mean, to me, marketing is sales, is delivery. To me, it's all the same thing. It really is. It's just different steps in the process. But I just want to say one more thing going back to messaging and marketing and words. Okay. Skimmably readable. I think I coined that phrase. But right now, the way the world is and everything's scrolling and so much garbage out there and everybody calls himself an expert and they just really just open one book and call themselves that. But our content needs to be skimmably readable. That means we need to add parentheses to stop the eye. We need to bold certain important words or italicize others. And the idea of a 1-sentence paragraph. Can I tell you how much I resisted that? Because, like many of my clients, I was a straight A student. I went to law school. I wrote briefs. I wrote formal briefs. So I always say, ladies, your smarts are going to hold you back. You've got to leave the academia at school, okay, or your former profession. You have got to, I hate to say it like this, but dumb it down, simplify it. And this idea of simplicity over complexity, that's the model throughout business, right? So you can scale with simplicity. Complexity will only stall your growth. So this idea of simplicity, when you think about your calendar, what's on there right now? I encourage everybody, look at your calendar right now. What's on it that really shouldn't be? What non-CEO tasks are you doing? And why in the world haven't you delegated it off already? So I had to say some of those things. So I want to emphasize this. You see, the best client and the transformation, that is what informs the offer or the offers that you put out there. Like every offer, I look at it, Todd, as your own business, as an individual business. So if you have 2 offers, you really have 2 businesses. Why do you say that, Jude? Because the offers, if they're different, there's going to be a subtlety to the best client for that offer. There's going to be a different transformation for that offer. So you need to almost think of your offers as silos. And that's where, again, you need to think very, in some ways, linearly, but because we're creative and we can do hard things, there's some flex there, but we need to know with clarity the pieces, the building blocks for our offers. The same thing with lead magnets. Let's talk about that for a second. How many of us have created 5, 10, 20 lead magnets? Oh, that was not hitting. I'm going to throw that. Let's try another one. Wait a minute. Maybe it's juice, but you just haven't communicated it in a way that your people say, "Ooh, I need that." Everything goes back to your words.
So when you say offers, what are we defining as different offer? Because maybe, for example, if you're a coach, maybe you've got a low ticket course here, and then you've got a group coaching program here, and maybe a one-on-one thing here. Like, are all those considered different offers?
Yes. And so I only work with service-based business owners, service providers. And so, yeah, you're either going to have a done for you something, a done with you something, or a group something, one-on-one, maybe a VIP day package. So yes, each and every one of those things is an individual offer. Oh, I hear this all the time. Well, Judy, I have one offer, but I've got 3 levels. I've got 3 tiers. Wait. And then I say, okay, explain to me your tiers. They can't. They're confused. And then I smile and I say, if you're confused, what do you think your audience is? I mean, that's why you're not, signing clients like you should be.
Or if they sign them, they all take the cheapest one.
Well, yeah. And then they don't do the work because they really weren't the best client. And, anyway, yeah, those kind of clients we don't want. So that's where clarity has to start with us.
So at this point, people might be wondering, if you're selling to the same people, these different offers, how would your messaging be different? So for example, if I got a coaching program, I got a one-on-one version, I've got a group coaching version, I've got maybe a do-it-yourself course that they can go through without coaching. So you're saying my messaging would be different for those 3?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. Let's use me as an example. I only have 2 offers. I have private clients, but I really don't put that out there because I don't do that much. But I have 2 offers. One is for the ladies that haven't yet had their first 100K year. That's called Breakthrough. And then I have about one other offer is my Miraculous Mastermind for those that are at 6 and multi-6 and want to scale towards 7 figures. So in my social and in my content, unless I'm in a promotional period for my lower offer, for those that haven't yet hit their first 6-figure year, I am always talking to the higher level person. And there's a reason for that. Because even those that haven't yet made their 6 figures, but they're aspiring to make 6 and multi-6 and maybe 7 figures, they're going to reach up and they're going to see, oh my gosh, like, wow, one day I want to work with Judy inside the mastermind, but I wonder what you could do for me now. People will reach up. But if you are talking to your lowest person, you're talking to the course people in my world know that I hate courses, and I don't mean to be spiritual anybody. You can get there, but only after you've been established because of the number of leads you need and et cetera, right? So, but you really need to be careful and very intentional about who you're talking to. And I would urge those out there that have many different offers, who is your highest level client? Because when you speak to her, those that aspire to be her, they will find you. Don't worry. We don't do things out of fear around here. We do things out of strategy and intention.
Yeah. So if you're just starting out, would you suggest they start with that highest level offer and build that out and sell that first?
Yes. And that's what feels scary, And they're like, well, Jude, I only had a couple clients and they didn't pay me, right? Or maybe I was my only client, in that example of the weight loss. Maybe I just was the one who, after years and years of yo-yo dieting, finally figured it out. And I say, well, wait a minute, but tell me, what is the today value of that transformation of losing the weight and all that it brought with it? Okay, that's huge when you think about that. Oh my gosh, I got off meds. I don't go to the doctor. All these different things, right? And that's one aspect, which is a big number. Now, extrapolate that out. What is the value of that for the next 10, 20, 50 years, right? And so, wait a minute, how much did you say you want to charge for this? So there's that. And then the other thing is we're talking about a best client. Best clients are the ones that are actively searching for the solution. They've already tried some things because they're committed to getting the result they want. And so those best clients, they're not moved by price. And I know that's going to flip somebody's minds. And some of you out there saying, yeah, but I hate yeah, buts, but that's okay. We deal with the yeah, buts. But the yeah, but Judy, that may be true for you, but it's not true for me. It really is. Everybody's best client is super motivated, so much so that they've decided they're all in and they've already taken steps. So that's who we need to talk to with every piece of content we put out.
And the other thing that you mentioned, I think a lot of people don't realize is when they start with, or at any point, whenever you create a lower ticket course, the amount of traffic you need to make one sale, or even the amount of traffic you need to make up the amount of money you would make from one higher ticket client, there's a huge discrepancy there. And I think a lot of people think that, okay, if I just create a course that's a couple $100, it'll be so much easier to sell. And it's not the case, is it?
I mean, just ask, and, hey, you're listening to this and you just heard what Todd said. And haven't you found that to be true? I priced this at $4.95, thinking it would fly off the shelves, but it's not. Right? It's not. But I want to add a layer here. Okay. So I definitely have my clients in the earlier stage create what I call a higher ticket offer. High ticket to me is like 15, 20, 50,000, not a couple thousand. So for me, we start with a 3 to 10K offer right out of the gate because you're an expert after all. Otherwise, don't go into business. But then there is what I call authority building offers. Okay. Authority building. It's become parlance in our world to call it low ticket, but no, I don't call it that because low ticket to me intimates low value. And these authority building offers are more of an entry lead magnet, but they pay for it because you're giving them a nice win. They're going to consume whatever this authority building offer is. They're going to consume it. They're going to fall in love with you. They're going to get a win and they're going to be like, "Ooh, I want more. I want more." So that's a lead magnet that we get paid to put out there. So we could talk about that more if you want, but that is very different than a $20 a month membership. No. That's not what we're talking about here.
That whole concept of the offers and the pricing and the different levels, I will say that when we bring on clients in our program, and from our own experience too, it is so much easier to sell one program at 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. It's so much easier to make one sale there versus if you got a $300 or $500 course and have to sell, how many of those, 20 of those to make maybe $10,000 a month. The amount of traffic you need is just astronomical, but also the level of marketing skill that you need in order to sell a lower ticket course on, say, something like a webinar or a challenge versus getting someone on a sales call and having a discussion with them, building that relationship and selling it that way. It's a very different way of making sales. And for someone who's first starting out, it's much easier to build the relationship and make the sale that way versus have the marketing skill to sell to the masses in a webinar or a challenge and have to generate the traffic to be able to do that and be successful with it and build the income that way. There's just such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And see, then that's what you just identified there. For beginners, the hardest thing to get traction isn't even necessarily developing the skill, which is absolutely important, but it's knowing who you are. It is you standing solid, that unwavering faith, solid in your identity. So that's the thing. What do you call yourself? Do you really consider yourself an expert or a novice? Because if you consider yourself a novice and yet you're projecting to the world that you are an expert, there's a disconnect there. You're out of alignment and it's just not working. It's like an energy that comes through the word or your expression in some way, and they just pick it up. They probably won't be able to verbalize it. But this idea of alignment is huge. And so when I hear you talk about, it's so funny when I hear you talk about the challenges and the webinars and all these different things and the Facebook ads, too many people are doing too many things that they don't want to do. So what I found, especially this year, Todd, I don't know if this will resonate with you, but I have stopped doing things that I don't love. And so I did 8 challenges last year and I loved them, but I was wearing out my team, frankly. I loved them. It was energizing, but I was wearing out my team. And so this year I've only done 2 and the revenue hasn't gone down. Why? Because of what we're talking about today, the words and the command with which I speak and the energy, that I show up in. You've got to know that you are the authority. And one other quick thing, and let me know if you want to dive here real quick, is a category of one. A lot of people talk about category of one, but unless and until you really know who you are and you have your method and you are so solid, again, unwavering faith in the fact that you can get your clients' results, unless you have that category of one and you put that out there as such, like, why you? Why? Unless you have that, you're going to be struggling. you're really going to be struggling.
Even trying to sell a lower ticket course.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's harder to sell the $300 something than the $3,000 something. And a quick example of that is if I'm looking for the best of the best and I'm impressed by what I see, but then I look at the price, there's a disconnect there. Like I'm not going to expect to pay $300 for a Louis bag. I'm going to expect to pay thousands. So we really, again, it's being in alignment.
One of the pieces of advice, and I think when I look back at what my wife and I did with our marketing early on, one of the things we were afraid of was potentially offending people or saying the wrong thing and having it kind of blow up on the internet in the wrong way, or having people get angry at us, getting the rude comments. I mean, and we get those anyways, but I mean, sometimes that's a fear too. If you get too bold with your messaging, if you say the wrong thing, do you have any advice for people who maybe have that fear?
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, playing small, holding back, that's a sin. All we have to do is read the parable of the talents to see that. The person that buried his talent, the master said, "Get away from me, you wicked, lazy servant." So here we are thinking we're being kind by kind of putting a basket over our light. And we don't really want to be all that we are. Some people might think I'm too much, or others will say, I'm not enough. And so what we're doing is we're being timid. And what does scripture tell us? God did not give us a spirit of fear or timidity in other translations, but a spirit of power. And so when we think about the fact that God knitted us in our mama's womb, it just gives me such great feels, especially as a mama who was blessed to have 3 boys. God knit us in our mama's womb with certain talents and abilities and that ambition and the drive and all the experiences that happened for a purpose. And so when we know that God called us to business, we better boldly step up as that leader, as that authority. Otherwise, it's a sin. That is a sin of omission. I firmly believe that. That is so important. So never worry about offending. And again, we go back to Jesus, who did lots of crazy things in the time because he wanted to show us what it looks like to stand firm on your mission and your movement.
That's so powerful. It's amazing. We'll have people that we speak to when we ask them, okay, so what are your goals for your business, as far as revenue and income and things like that. And they'll say, well, I'm not really worried about making money. It's like they have this aversion to making money or making sales in their business. It's like, no. I mean, the more money you make, the bigger impact you're having. That's the goal. Isn't that the goal?
Can I just say, why are Christians afraid to make money? I come from nothing. Daddy was a factory worker. Mom stayed home. The most money my dad ever made was like maybe $40,000. So the first time I had a $40,000 month, unfortunately, my father had already passed. But I was thinking, wow, if he was alive, he'd be like, what did you just do? Like I didn't even realize that was possible. Okay. So this is not coming from a silver spoon. Okay. But what I've come to know is, again, that what God has called each of us to is so much bigger than we could even imagine. My life verse, Ephesians 3:20. Jesus can do so much more than we can imagine, and infinitely more, immeasurably more. So what are we doing? What are we afraid of? And by the way, this is another interesting thing. Tell me if you hear this, Todd, that clients come to me and they made lots of money in corporate. And when I asked, well, did you feel guilty about bringing $250,000 home? Oh, no. Well, what's the difference? I mean, you're still giving value, and probably more value to your clients than you ever gave in the seat of corporate. So it's just an interesting thing. And so I'm totally on mission, because that was some big money mind junk that I had to get over. And I still haven't processed it all, but that's huge. Why are we apologizing? I'm going to be writing a 6-figure check back to the Lord. Like, how awesome is that? So don't hold back. Can you see my passion in this?
Yeah, well, and that's a really interesting point. I mean, and another way to look at it would be, obviously, if you're just running your business, you may already be working a full-time or part-time job. What if they decided to pay you $500,000 a year for that job? Would you say no?
Great point. Great point.
Judy, this has been just such an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more we could discuss and so much deeper we could go into this. But for those people who want to know more about you and what you do and maybe get a little bit of your help, how can they get a hold of you online?
Yeah, I would encourage whatever your preferred social platform is, come find me at Judy Weber Co. I do have a team, but I love leaving voice notes. So you will hear from me, because I'm one of these people that don't just collect followers, but I really want to connect with you at a person-to-person level. But I also want to offer a freebie. So for those that are listening that want to get the skinny on how to scale to your first million, I want you to go ahead and click to judyweber.co/thefaithshift, because there you'll find my Faith Shift Private podcast. It's all about 7-figure faith-fueled success reverse engineered. So it's time that we lean into the limitless power of Christ that makes every business strategy work. So again, judyweber.co/thefaithshift.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we will have the links for all of those things in the show notes. So be sure to check those out. Judy, once again, thank you so much for being with us. This, like I said, I love this conversation, and I hope you come back again someday.
Thanks, Todd, for having me. I'd love to have you on my show.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.